everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of Maple's Host a Pro series, where we talk with super talents about everything from marketing to business and so much more. Our guest today is the founder and chief troublemaker of The Content Advisory, a marketing coach, consultant, and educator with 20 years of experience. He collaborated with Fortune 100 companies and the author of 3 books, the latest one being Content Marketing Strategy. He's a true inspiration. Please welcome Robert Prose. Hi, Robert.
Hello. Thank you for having me. This is so much fun.
I'm happy to have you. So, how are you? What's new in the marketing strategy world? What do you want opening to be?
Well, holy smokes. We won't talk about the obvious giant elephant in the room, which of course is AI, but what I think we can talk about here in terms of what is new, certainly what we've been seeing a lot of, is the sort of, let's call it the ripple effect of the big splash that AI has made, which is really at the heart of it a content strategy problem more than anything else, because it's really all about how marketers, and it doesn't matter whether you're a business of one and a solopreneur, or you're a marketing manager and a team of 1,000 people, how is all of this going to affect the ways and methods by which we create content at scale for all of the different audiences that we have to create it for, and for all the marketing purposes that we have to create it for. And so I will tell you, the thing that we've been most busy with, the clients that we deal with and the training workshops that we're conducting, is all about how do we deal with this, what is going to become even more noise in the marketplace as we try and make sense and engage audiences and get them to do the things we want them to do as marketers. So it's been busy, put it that way.
Okay, we won't talk about it yet. I mean, we might touch that later. AI needs to come up in every interview. 2024 is coming and we have to talk about it. But let's talk a little bit about content strategy development and where do you put your focus first? What do you think are the key elements of a strategy when you're starting to work at one? I mean, now in, upcoming 2024, all the trends coming up.
Yeah. Here's what I would say is that we often get too wrapped around trying to figure out what it is we're going to say. As marketers and as businesses, we start thinking, should we be really provocative, or should we create this wonderful thought leadership, or should we create this education program, or should we, do some cool ads or some TikTok videos, and what we find is that those are all things that we do have to think about. But the first step that we have to think about, and again, this is whether you're one person or 100 people, is how are we making the business good at content? One of the things that I often talk to content teams about is the only way you're going to scale is, and it's already happening, by the way, is that everybody's creating content, right? Your CEO is creating content, your account people are creating content, we're creating content, everybody's creating content and putting it out there. And so the real question becomes, how do you harness all of that? Like, how do you get your arms around all of that? Because in so many businesses, what the CEO is saying is different than what sales is saying, and what's different than marketing is saying is different when the PR people are saying is what's different than the product people are saying. And so our real job as a content marketer or a content practitioner in our business is, how do we start putting our arms around that so that we make the business consistent, that we make the business truly engaging, so that the business speaks and is authentic and has a human voice and all of that, so that we are all saying the same thing, basically, that we're all really telling the same story. Doing that work first is super important, because then when you start thinking about, okay, what are all the things that we want to say? Like, what do we want to say on TikTok? And what do we want to say on Facebook? And what do we want to say on our blog? And what do we want to say on our website? Well, now we have a plan, right? We're not thinking about, what are we going to tell you Friday? We actually have a plan for saying that this week, next month, next quarter. et cetera. And that's the real tricky part of starting out with a content strategy, is figuring out how do we make the business coordinated and figure out all those, workflows and, how it's all going to work together.
It's actually depending on how clear the brand values and the brand core idea is, because if it's very clear what a business is doing and why they're doing it, then it's easier to kind of have the same voice around the subject. But how do you get there? I mean, do you have like a practice on how to do that? How to get people understand? Like, how do you expose a business story if the business doesn't know the story yet?
It's, so when you think about it, one of the things that we've gotten lost in, and we see this in all the clients that we deal with, and it's very easy to get lost in this, which is we tend to think of content. When we think of content, we think of the container of content. And we're trained in many ways to do this, when we go to university for marketing, right? We're trained to think, what do I need first? I need an email. I need a blog post. I need a white paper. I need an ebook. I need, we think the container first, and then we go, great, we need a container, we need an ebook. Great. Now, how are we going to fill it full of content? And we all go, I don't know. We're going to pour stuff into it, right? And what ends up happening is that what I just mentioned, right, with the CEO talking about one thing and the sales talking about another thing, because we've thought container first. So there's all this stuff just going out. So one of the first things to do is to switch that, to start thinking, what is our story first? Like, what do we want to talk about? Like, what are the themes? What are our content pillars? What's our brand voice? What is it we want to say? What's our point of view on the world? And really get that sharp and defined, so that you have a really clear brand voice. You have the business has a really clear point of view on the world and what it is we want to say and how we want to say it. Now we can start thinking, okay, great. How do we translate all those stories into multiple containers, right? So that when we create that story, it's in an ebook. Yes, it's in a blog post. Yes, it's in a webinar. Yes, it's on our webpage. So it's one story told in many, many different formats instead of many formats sort of trying to fit into all these stories.
And how do you balance the creative content production and strategic goals? Because you must have them. You have KPIs wherever you are. How do you balance that with the idea that you need to have the effectiveness for that? I mean, where's the balance? I think most businesses, that's the struggle.
Yeah, I mean, and this gets to the idea that it's called content strategy and not content service, right? Which is, in many businesses right now, the content team is sort of just fulfilling orders, right, to marketing or demand gen teams, or, the CEO or sales or somebody is saying, hey, we need more content. And so give us more content because we need to make this campaign better, or we need to make this, we need to get more visits to our website, or we need more social shares, or whatever it is. And instead we need to say, okay, let's figure out that story. Let's figure out all the different channels we want to say it. And then what are the priority goals, right? What are our goals for each of those things? It's amazing to me that many businesses don't look at the different channels and campaigns that they're putting all this content on with any kind of goals at all. They just go, if it gets more, it gets better, right? And if it, more visits, that's better. But is it? So we really have to take the time to say, what are we really trying to do with this experience at this part of our customer's journey, right? So if it's our website, what's the goal of the website? Is the goal to sell something, or is it to do thought leadership, or is it to do awareness? What is it? What is the purpose? What is the goal or objective of our website? What's the goal or objective of our YouTube channel? What's the goal or objective of our podcast, or any of the channels where we're putting these things on? Now we say, okay, the website's goal is to put more leads into the funnel for salespeople. Great. Now we know what kind of content needs to be on that website and where we need to prioritize. Now we just need to align on the story that we're telling, and we can start balancing the editorial or the content we're creating with the goals of the channel, and then figure out what's working and what's not working. Like what's supporting that goal and what's not supporting that goal.
And then the next phase will be kind of adapting the audience needs. I mean, that's going to be the next step of your strategy, because okay, you have the idea and you have the story, and then you have the ongoing strategy of how to create content and where, and now you have to take your audience into consideration. And how do you do that, like in this rapidly evolving digital landscape that's changing all the time, and AI is taking over, and authenticity is needed, and brands are struggling with that. How do you do that?
It's it is the way I like to think of it is that marketing today really needs to be a learning system, right? It is always on and always learning. And that means, and that's why it's so important for us to set that foundation of standards, right? So when we set a foundation of standards, like this is the way we will, accept ideas and prioritize our ideas and prioritize those stories. These are the goals of the channels that we're on. This is ultimately our, marketing goals, which whether they might be more revenue or more profitability or more awareness or whatever those goals are. So once we set those standards, now we can start to measure against how we're doing, right? So in other words, if what we really find is that, because we're so good at SEO, well, we're getting a lot of traffic, but it's really high level awareness traffic, and we're trying to close them too soon, right? We can see that a lot of that traffic is bouncing away, or we're not really attracting the right kind of people to the website. Well, now we can make a choice, right? We can make a balanced choice in terms of how to adapt our strategies for that, where we can say, okay, we want to change the content on the website to reflect who we're actually getting, or we want to change the promotional techniques of how we're promoting the website to change the audience that's coming to the website. And we start making those decisions and learning from our tests, learning from what we're doing, so that we continually balance what it is we're doing over time and get better and better and better. But without those standards, there's nothing to measure it against. One of the biggest problems that we see is that we go, oh yeah, we're just always trying to get more traffic. But why? Why are you getting more traffic to your website? Like, what are you trying to do with it? What do you want them to do next? And if the answer is, I don't know, we want them to buy more and become aware and become a more loyal customer, we're trying to do all the things. Well, you won't do any of them very well, because everything's right then, right? Every salesperson that goes, we need more of this on the website, they're right. And when the CEO goes, no, we need more of that on the website, they're right too, because you haven't established any standards or goals that you're trying to achieve with that. So everybody's right. So everybody sort of throws up their hands in frustration and goes, this is hard. So if you can establish those standards, now we have data to sort of say, this is how we're doing against that standard, and we can make business decisions about how we want to change because of it.
I think you're kind of touching the pain point of every organic content creator who's not doing things to become viral. I mean, this is like, I'm doing organic content on, let's say, Instagram for social media, and I cannot promise this post will hit 20K likes. I cannot promise that. I will try my best to create the best content and to tell the right story, but there's something about this illusion of creating viral content, quote unquote, that's totally up to the content creator. And I think we're missing something, because it's not about that. And this is where my next question is coming. Quality over quantity. Because do we need more to have more people, more eyes watching our content, and then creating kind of that community around our brand? Or do we just keep on the quality and we insist on that? And it's a slower paced path, but it might work better. I mean, how do you decide?
Yeah, well, it's a balance, right? It's and so but just exactly to your point, we get so caught up in trying to create something that goes viral that the immediate, our immediate reaction is, oh, do more of that, right? Do more of that. And when we don't even know if the thing going viral was productive for our business. One of the things that I'll often ask a CMO or a head of marketing is, I'll say, would you rather have 1,000 people to your website where 100 people buy, Or would you rather have 100,000 people to your website where 10 people buy? And so, the question becomes, what are we trying to achieve? So yes, we got 20,000 likes with that Instagram post, but what did it do? Like, what was the goal of Instagram? And it's lovely, it's fun that 20,000 people liked it and it went viral, but who cares if nothing happened? And so it's much more important to say, what is the objective that we're trying to reach? And yes, if we happen to hit upon a piece of content that hits that objective and exponentially blows it out of the water, right? It's just like, oh my God, we were trying for visits for our website. We had this Instagram post and hit 20,000 likes, and half of them came to the website, and a bunch of them signed up for demos, and a bunch of them signed up for our newsletter, or whatever the goal was. Well, now we go, great, that worked. So let's figure out how to do more of that. And then it becomes a question of saying, let's do more. Let's try and do more of that. And I always say our whole goal is to create only the amount of content we need to create to meet our objectives, because we have other things we got to do, right? Where there's other stuff that we have to do as marketers. We're not just creating content. We're also measuring and working on product stuff and working on our brand and working on, there's so many things we have to do in our life that just trying to figure out how something goes viral, it just becomes this where it's like a dog chasing its tail, right? We just never catch it.
In your opinion, what's the best content form?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, because look, HubSpot often does this, right? Where they go, Tuesdays are the best day to tweet, video is the best format of content. And it's like, no, it might be for this business. It might not be for that business, right? So it's really about building that learning system and being able to understand. But what I'll say this to answer the question is, obviously we're seeing video play a huge role these days. I mean, the internet generally, the web generally is becoming much more rich media. Interactive applications we're seeing really do very well. Online events are doing very well, both streaming events as well as recorded events, as well as, video generally speaking across the social media platforms, whether it's Instagram Reels or TikTok, if you're in the consumer space, or influencer videos and those kinds of things. So, I think what we can start to see dying out a little bit are businesses that are still wrapped up in the whole PDF thing, right? Where they're doing everything in PDFs, right? Whether it's an ebook or, young people tend to want, like, I just want it on the website. Like, just give me a structured way to look at it on the web. I don't have to download a PDF because I'm not going to print it. I'm going to look at it on my mobile phone. So we can start to see PDFs not being so popular anymore. And we can see blogs kind of suffering a little bit right now because of, just the general noise out there in the marketplace. But, we also see some blogs doing really, really well. So it really just depends on your business.
Any advice you can give an aspiring content marketer? What do you think they should focus on when they start their path?
Yeah, my advice these days, and this gets us into a little bit of AI, for content marketers is to go deep. And when I mean go deep, I mean, if you're a writer or a content creator, a photographer, or a videographer, whatever it is you do that makes you a content creator in your business or on your own, get really deep into something. In other words, get really deep into your topic, right? Get really deep so that you're like the foremost subject matter expert on whatever it is you talk about, or get really deep on storytelling where you're bringing the most creative, the most human stories to bear, or you're adding some other service to what it is you already do, right? So you combine, for example, strategy and content creation, or measurement and content creation, or some sort of other aspect of skill other than just typing words, right? Or taking pictures, because that's what will ultimately become a commodity from AI and from other technologies, is literally putting 500 words together, to answer a how-to, or do a manual, or do a an instructional sort of piece of content. But if you're great at storytelling, if you're great at thought leadership and subject matter expertise, if you're great in strategy, or if you're great in measurement, in addition to being a content creator, well, that's a combination that just can't be beat. So my advice is go deep somewhere. Go deep somewhere else other than just putting words or pictures together.
What do you see as the most common challenge for businesses when it comes to content creation or content strategy creation?
Well, the first one I talked a little bit about, which is that flipping of the container and the content. That's the biggest challenge that we see, honestly, because we're so used to doing it. I mean, for decades, that's how we've done stuff, right? We've said, we need a brochure, or we need, a mailer, or we need an email, or we need a post. And then as digital came along, it became, okay, now there's more formats, right? Now we need a video. Now we need an ebook. Now and it's just the number of format, but we didn't change the way that we worked. We basically said, okay, it's still about finding the container first and then finding the content later. And that's the biggest challenge that honestly, it's the biggest challenge that we fix when in our consulting work and in our training, is if we can get those two things switched, where the initial conversation is about ideas and stories and content, and then we start thinking about what are all the containers we're going to put these prioritized stories in. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and it's regarding measurement, which is always one of the biggest classic challenges, is we don't make the content. In other words, we don't feed the content into, we don't measure the content's impact. We measure the content consumption. And and what I mean by that is, it's to your, we were talking a little earlier about the Instagram, right? 20,000 views, right? And we go, was that a successful piece of content? And everybody goes, well, yeah, it was a successful piece of content because it got 20,000 likes and everybody shared it. It's like, but was it, right? And the other way around happens a lot more often, right? Whereas we have a white paper, or we have a blog post, or we have an ebook, and 25 people downloaded it, or 100 people downloaded it. But it gave us the biggest piece of business that, we've ever seen before, or we closed a customer immediately. But then what happens is that we forget about it because it didn't go viral, because it didn't get all this attention. We sort of go, just sweep it under the rug and forget about it. And so next quarter, when everybody's like, what content should we do? And somebody goes, well, why don't we re-promote that ebook or that white paper that we did last quarter that closed that big customer? We did that last quarter. Let's not do that again. Well, why not? Why wouldn't we re-promote and redo this amazing piece of content that gave us all this business? Because everybody was like, it only got 100 views, or it only got 200 downloads, right? So we have to actually, what's the impact of the content that we're creating, not just what the consumption of it is.
What do you think 2024 holds for content in terms of everything? Yeah, that's a long one, I know.
Yeah. It's a big question. I think so. I've just recently been asked for a couple of predictions on other websites, and so my big sort of out there prediction for 2024 is, and this is, the safe part of this one is that Twitter, or X as it's now called, sort of begins, it turns into a zombie, basically. It just kind of dies, but it's still there, but it's just kind of a zombie. But I think it's indicative of where we are with social media more broadly. And so I think social media finally comes to an end, as it were, right? Where what we're seeing now, and you can just sort of see the trends of this happening, at least in my opinion, you can see social media is becoming much more of a content consumption network than it is a social media place, right? The gap between those that are creating content on social media versus those that are, social media is still big, right? Facebook's big, Instagram's big, TikTok's big, YouTube is big, but we're all just consuming content on it. We're not actually socializing it or creating community on it. That's all happening in private groups, right? Like Snap or WhatsApp or, those, or, even text messaging or even private Facebook groups. That's where the social part of social media is happening. It's all private. So I think as marketers, that fundamentally changes the way that we approach social media and look at it much more like YouTube and TikTok than we do, all the channels much more like we do YouTube and TikTok, rather than as places to build a community and organically grow. And so that's, I guess, one thing that I think holds. Two, broadly speaking, I'm hoping, crossing my fingers for a good economy in 24. It's been kind of a weird, 23 has been kind of a weird year for everybody in small businesses and agencies and consulting and, and technology. And, it's been a brutal year for many. And I'm really hoping for a great, wonderful, thriving year in 24. I'm seeing signs of that.
All right. I do want to touch a great subject, which is your new book.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I wanna ask you. I mean, okay, so the title, Content Marketing Strategy, it speaks for itself. I mean, I know. All right.
Yeah.
But is it educational, inspirational, both? I mean, what's the core? What's the story behind the book?
It's a geeky book. I'm gonna be quite honest with you and your audience. It is a geeky book. So a lot of what we've talked about today on the show is really about the process, right? The process of how we change things to make our content better, to give us the opportunity to make our content better. And that's really what I wanted to write a book about, because for the last 10 years, I've been working in this space with, all kinds of different companies, big companies, small companies, medium-sized companies. And the things that what I noticed was, I said, okay, there are what I call conscious content marketing people, right? So, and we've heard about these companies before, like Cleveland Clinic and Red Bull and HubSpot and all these companies that we go, oh yeah, if you go to their heads of marketing and you say content marketing, they would go, yes, of course. We read the books. We've gone to the, we've got the T-shirt. We definitely have designed our marketing to be a content marketing strategy. But then there's what I call the unconscious content marketers, right? So those are companies like Amazon, right? Where, Amazon Prime is a huge content marketing platform for them. Or you look at JP Morgan Chase, the huge bank, where they buy the Zagat restaurant guide, or all these companies that have created media platforms as marketing extensions. But if you ask their heads of marketing, and I have, they'd go, I don't even know what content marketing is. I've never heard of it, right? What are you talking about? It's just a smart business decision that we made to make this media platform to reach these new audiences. And so what I wanted to do was, I said, okay, great. There's the conscious and the unconscious. What are they doing? Like, what are the teams doing? What are the activities? How are they putting their strategies together that are common? Like the ones that are conscious of it and the ones, so where are those commonalities? Because they're all succeeding, but one is doing it as just an extension of a business strategy, and the other is doing it because they think content marketing is cool. So what are they all doing that's common? And that's what the book is about, is all the activities, the measurement frameworks, the team charters, the RACI, the project management part of it. It's very geeky. I will tell you, I warn you, it's very geeky. But that's what the book is really about, is how to put together a true content marketing strategy that is around your teams, the process, and the measurement that makes it all happen.
Do you have a favorite part in the book, or do you love it all?
Yes, my favorite part of the book. Yeah, well, my favorite part of the book, and it's the favorite thing that I teach as well, which is storytelling. Talking about business storytelling, because storytelling is a huge, everybody's talking about storytelling these days in some form or fashion. I'd like to think I come to it with a bit of a fresh perspective, because I started my career as a screenwriter and a writer and a playwright here in my hometown of Los Angeles. And so, but there's a difference between that kind of storytelling and business storytelling. And I love teaching. It's my favorite thing to teach. So it's probably my favorite chapter of the book.
Robert, thank you very much for being with us today. It was super interesting, and I hope to have you back again in 2024. Maybe we'll have a retrospective looking at what happened.
See how accurate I was. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.